Hi, maybe you're new to wood turning and want a good fun project. Well, one of the best I've found is making these Slimline pins, or any other pin for that matter. Other than your lathe, it doesn't require a ton of material or a lot of expensive items, and they really make a great product. It's one that you can complete an entire pin in 20 to 30 minutes. I usually crank these out in a batch where I'll do one step and then do another step and another step and then assemble all the pins at the end. So it's a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed my video. This is showing you how I do things. Okay, now I'm going to cut my pin blanks to the proper dimensions. So I have a board here that I've cut to 5 inches. I'm going to divide this up into 3/4 inch pieces. I found that the bandsaw is the safest way to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This will be loud when I turn the bandsaw on. Okay, so here I have some cut blanks. Now you can also purchase these blanks rather than cutting them yourself, but if you have some scrap wood, this is a great way to use it. So I put a line across so I can later align my grain. I'll number these just to make sure I don't get these all mixed up. And now I'm going to cut the pieces to the length I'll need. So in the Slimline pin, you have 2 sections that are equal in length, and the brass tubing is your guide. So you're going to make your cut piece just a little longer than the brass tubing. You want it a little longer so when you flush up the ends later that it fits right. So this will be again loud as the bandsaw is running. Now the standard method for drilling your holes for your brass tubing is to take your end, let's get a cleaner end, take your end, place some type of straight edge from each corner and make a mark. And you're going to drill where your X is, the center point of your X. I bought this centering jig and it saves me just a lot of time. I think it does a great job. It'll accept different size wood. You just have to adjust the little collar here to move it in and out. Okay. Drill the other side. Okay, so there we have our blank ready to accept the brass tubing. Okay, so now we need to prepare the brass tubing for gluing. Now I've already sanded these, but I'm going to show you how I do it. When you buy them, they're usually unsanded. So I just feed 3 of these over my pin mandrel. Clamp it down, turn my lathe on to a fairly high speed, not quite that high. Take a 220 sandpaper while it's spinning and just back and forth a little bit. And then that's it. That's much easier than using sandpaper in your palm and trying to do it. And you get a really good rough coating that's going to accept the glue well and not slip out of your wood blank. Okay, so now I'm going to be gluing the brass tubing into my drilled pin blanks. So I use a CA medium glue. Just place a thin bead of glue down the length of one side. Slowly spin and advance. I'm going to have a lot left over when I get to the end, and I just take my next tube, push that in, and wipe that onto my next one. And then set that aside. Add a little more for the length that I didn't cover. And repeat. I like to do all these tedious steps at the same time so that I can have a bunch of them drying and ready to make pins. Okay, so I've finished gluing the brass tubing and the drilled blanks, and now I'm going to flush off the ends. So these are some I've done before. You want to let those, that medium CA glue takes a little while to dry, so I'd leave them for a couple hours. I put a little bit of sandpaper that I glued into the vise so it holds these blanks better. Otherwise they kept slipping. So this comes with most of the kits, and it's just a tool for making sure the brass tubing doesn't have any glue in it, and then it has a this little bit to flush off the end. So just gonna insert it in. Don't need to do much, just till you see a little shine of the brass. All right, now for the fun part where we actually get to use the lathe. So I'm going to put my 7mm bushing on. I'm going to line up my previously made marks. I don't know if you can see that. I've got a mark and I number them just so make sure I don't get out of whack because I do several at once. Okay, advance my tool rest. And I'll just crank it up to a pretty high speed right from the beginning. I'm going to use my spindle gouge just to round this off. Okay, so I've just rounded that off with the spindle gouge. Now you can just use whatever creative design you'd like to make. This is the fun part. I'm going to use this carbide round tip. And this is for the center collar. It's going to be on the Slimline pin. I'm designing this pin so that the right hand side is going to be the writing tip. Here. Some of that Coca-Cola will just look great with all the different grains and hues. Try to get that a little smoother and move it to make some textures here just to help grip the pen. And honestly, that's smooth enough basically right now to not even have to sand it, but I'm going to sand a little bit. So I'm just going to use a piece of 320 grit flexible. I'm going to very lightly run over this direction. Normally have to do more than that, but that Coca-Cola comes off so smooth. Now I'm going to sand with the grain. Okay, now we're ready to put on a finish. I like to use CA glue as my finish. I've tried different things. I've tried friction polish and tried, seems like everything. But the CA glue goes on fast. It's very durable. It gives a great shine. I just think it's the best choice. So I like to use CA glue just thin the whole time for this part. I take a nitrile glove and just cut the fingers off and just use one finger. Wrap an old piece of t-shirt. Apply the glue. Put a coat on. Now I'm going to put a little bit of activator just to speed up the process, although that dries very quickly. It's looking good, not quite shiny enough yet. I'm going to take my very fine grit. This is a 1800 grit sandpaper. Just going to hit that very briefly. When you apply the activator in the first coat of the CA glue, it'll just have a slight textured finish that I don't like. I want it to be as glassy smooth as I can. So just lightly hit that. Again, with my lathe on a fairly low speed here, I'll wipe that off, and then I plan to put 2 more coats of just CA thin on without any sanding needed between these. There's still some of the activator on, so it'll dry very quickly. Just want to make sure Yeah, that's dry. It's got a nice shine already, but I'm gonna go with one more coat. There we go. And that's totally dry to the touch. Looks great. Okay, so here's the components that I'll be assembling. I've got my completed pin blank. Make sure and keep your orientation proper, especially this back piece can be flipped over and you really can't tell, and then the grains won't line up properly. So you want to make sure off the lathe you keep your orientation correct. Now I've used a lot of different ways to put these pins together. I purchased this Miles Craft tool, and I think it works great for this. It certainly saved me from damaging a lot of pins. With using a clamp or your vise, it's easy to break this tip as this goes in. If it misaligns, it'll crack that tip with a very thin wood. This makes that very easy. So advance that. It's also quick. Flip two more back. Pop the next piece in. I want to compress this until it is this mark here is level or flush with the wood there. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to place my filament in, and that comes out to a nice length. These have a little protector on the tip. I like to take that off so people don't get a pin and think it doesn't write. Okay, so that's good. Now there's a little decorative collar. Advance that through. Now we'll work on the cap. So we have these two sections. We're going to put this one in there. Normally that's a lot easier than that. Put two back in. Kept my orientation proper. Put that there. Compress that in. Put my pin together, back it off, and then just try to line my grains up. And that's my completed pin. This is a copper, they call it. It looks like rose gold to me, but a copper shaft, or copper style with a slimline pin with coca-cola wood.